Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in beautiful Fresno, California. And if you've never been here, it is a place worth visiting. Anyway, today I decided I want to continue doing a little more online of kind of a teaching show. Been doing some of that the last couple weeks. So I thought I'd pick it up this week. I'm going to work out of a book called Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And in particular, I'm going to talk about how to build your tomorrow today. And if you have a copy of the book, you can find this on page 190. You know, before we get started, though, it is a great day, and I hope you're owning your day today as a great day. I hope when you woke up this morning, it is my intention that as you have watched this show, or if you're watching it for the first time today, that you get this concept, this idea of creating your day, not just experiencing your day, not being subject to your day, but actually being a creator of how you experience your day. And how to build a better tomorrow today just kind of goes hand in glove with something that I've been doing each show, and that is, starting the show off with the idea that we create our day. Before we open our eyes in the morning, we can make a declaration. As we're just kind of coming around, you go, it's a great day. Take a deep breath. Open your eyes. You get up and you do your morning routine, and you get in front of that mirror in the bathroom. You look yourself in the eye and welcome yourself to the day. But don't just welcome yourself. Welcome yourself as a concept as a and an expression of divine principle or God, or however you want to relate to the infiniteness. And you look yourself in the eye and you say, welcome to this day. It's a great day, and thank you, and I'm glad to be here. And you know what? Regardless of what we have going on in our day, and sometimes, I mean, truth be told, our days can be very serious, and we may have a bunch of stuff that, we have to take care of that may be a little bit foreboding. But you know what? If we start with an attitude that, the day is great, maybe include a little gratitude at that point, maybe include a recognition of the truth of who we are, that we are the divine principle, we are God expressing as us. And as we move forth into the day, regardless of what happens, regardless of how serious or how complicated or whatever, it's like we've got a one-up on the day. And for each of us, it can be life-changing. And so that's what we're kind of talking about today. I want to read this opening paragraph here. Ernest Holmes says, life is an adventure in which we never know what is going to happen just beyond the turn of the road. And that's it. We don't know. We may have an idea of what our day is going to bring, but life does come at us at the speed of life. And I've mentioned that many times. It comes at us at the speed of life. And even though we have the best laid plans of Mike's men, as they say, sometimes life has different plans for us. So he goes on to say, but too often our today is filled with regrets over the past. And that's one of the key points that we're going to start with today. Our regrets over the past. And I've talked about this on other shows. This is so important. And it doesn't make any difference where you are at spiritually. Whether you happen to be someone that's a practitioner of New Thought, or maybe you're a practitioner of some other religious philosophy or faith, we can all choose to make this one choice that I'm going to talk about. And that choice is to look at our story. You know our story. You know what your story is. Our story is all that stuff that we've got in our mental closet, so to speak. It's the reason why I can't do this, or the reason why I've had this problem in my life, or whatever. And we have our story. And I've shared in the past the idea that oftentimes there's many of us that it's kind of like, we live in the river of life, and that river of life is so full of potential good and possibilities and opportunities. But because we have clung to our story, what we've done in the midst of the middle of that river of life, we have built a wall around our story. In other words, we've created a moat. Our story's in the center, and we live in the water in that moat. And the thing about living in the water in a moat is there's no circulation, there's no refreshing, there's no newness, and it gets staler and staler and staler, and it gets more toxic as time goes on. But we have our story, and our story is our justification for where we're at right now. So what? Look at our story and just say, so what? You say, well, that's kind of odd, kind of strange. Two most powerful words in the English language, as I understand it, is I am. And that's a thought for a show for another time. But for me, the second two most powerful words in the English language is so what? So what, when we can get to the point to where we can look at our story and say, so what? Now that doesn't mean that we walk away from it in the sense that, it didn't exist, because it did exist. It is our story, and I understand that. But when we can say, so what, that means that we can cut the ties that our story has to where we're at today. And that's what Holmes is talking about. He says, too often our today is filled with regrets over the past. Too often today is filled with our story. And we use our story to justify, and we use our story to limit ourselves, or to kind of comfort ourselves, if you will, when life doesn't seemingly give to us that which we want, that which we need. And yet, the master teacher told us a long time ago that it's done unto us as we believe, and that when we pray believing, our Father will answer. Well, how does this happen if I'm stuck with my story? Well, it happens because at the level of our story, the level of our connectedness to our past, is also the level of our belief. And if we're going to make a choice to make change in our life, which I challenge each and every one of you, make that choice to make change in your life. If you haven't done so yet, it's time to do it. It's time to get started. And you get started when? You get started now. You get started where? You get started right where you're at. You make a choice right now. I'm going to make change in my life. I'm going to choose something different. So we start there. And he goes on to say, if we could convince ourselves that the limitations of the past need not be carried into the future, what a happy outlook we should have. That's a great idea. But how do we do that? How do we convince ourselves that the limitations of the past aren't going to own us today? It does start with a choice. And we'll get serious here for a minute. You know, choosing. Sometimes people say, well, it's just a matter of a thought. But you know, thoughts are powerful things. But when we make a choice and we commit to the choice that we make, we set into motion forces of which we have no idea of the strength, the power, and the ability to create and demonstrate in our life. Oftentimes, though, we make those choices and we get discouraged early on and we move away from them. But when you make a choice and you commit to following up on that choice, you say, I choose. I choose. And when you say I choose and you begin to work on that idea of I choose, and you can meditate on it. You can use it as an affirmation. It's an amazing thing that happens. There is the mind, that part of us, and the mind is it's a magnificent and wonderful thing. But one of the great things about the mind is it works. It really works to give us what it thinks that we want. But it's very literal. When we live in our story, it gives us more of our story. When we say I'm limited, it says, okay, you want more limitation, and it will give it to us. But when you say I've made a choice, and you begin to work on that takes a little bit of time. It takes commitment, like I said. And you have to follow through with some action on that commitment, which may be doing affirmations, maybe doing daily meditations. There's various tools, you know, mind hacks, if you will, and lifestyle hacks that you can employ. And we've talked about many of those in previous shows. And you can go back and catch some of those shows. They're online on YouTube, or if you happen to be a subscriber to New Thought Channel, you know, we have an archive up there now of some of our more recent shows. But there's things that you can do. And if you're not willing to do it, then when you say I choose, what you're really saying is I wish. And there's a big difference between making a choice and making a wish. So we decide we're going to make a choice. We make a choice. We say, okay, but here I am. I'm stuck in this spot. And maybe this spot is not the best spot in the whole world to be at, but it's the spot where we're at. Let's not try to create in our mind a spot that we can't relate with as the truth of where we're at. Let's just start right where we're at. We say, okay. So we make that choice, we commit to that choice, we start right where we're at, and then we seek to create something better. How do we create something better? We create something better, just like I opened the show with. As you start your day, just that one simple thing in the morning. You say, well, that's kind of simplistic. It is, but it sets a mental tone. As the day goes on, as we begin to work through the day, you know, there's other things that are going to arise. When something arises in your day, and this is important, that is not necessarily to your liking, and you want to complain about it. If you complain, think about it. If the mind wants to give you, if it works hard to give you what it thinks, and it does this on a literal basis, what it thinks that you want, when I complain about limitation or lack or, you know, disruption in my life, the mind goes, okay, that's what you want. I'll give you more of what you want. That's where you're focusing your thoughts, and I can provide you with more to complain about. And so we find more to complain about. So, you know, one of the great tools that we can begin to use is the idea of releasing our connectedness to the habit of complaining. And there's great tools for that. You can go online and look up a complaint-free world. And there's a little, you know, it's one of these little rubber bracelets that you wear, and there's a great little process that you can go through to break yourself of the habit of complaining. And in truth, that's what complaining is. It's a habit. You know, when you see something and you want to complain about it, you can just look at that same something and say, you know, that's the what is. I'm seeking something better in my life. Yeah. It's easier said than done, my friends, but it's nothing that anybody cannot get to at some point in time. A complaint-free world. Look it up, Google it. It will help you if that's where you want to start. If you want to start with affirmations, then you start with affirmations. You want to start with reading books like The Science of Mind, books like it's a very dated book by H. Emily Cady, and it's called Lessons in Truth. It's the foundational book for the Unity movement, which is one of the New Thought movements. You can find it online. If you happen to be a little bit tight financially, and if you're watching the show, obviously you have access to the internet, just Google H. Emily Cady, and it'll come up. Powerful. It's a little dated in its verbiage, but it's a powerful group of lessons that you can begin to implement in your life today. You can start right now to make change. And on this note, we're going to move to our first break, and I'll see you when we come back.
Diane Ainsworth's books of poetry and scriptures are available at CondioPress.com and as ebooks at Amazon.com. Diane hopes the words in her books will convey the unconditional love Jesus has for you. Learn more at godsinspirationsblog.wordpress.com and get a copy of Diane's books today.
This 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Clovis is now for sale. Nestled on a cul-de-sac in a planned unit development, the quiet neighborhood is near Sierra Vista Mall, grocery stores, and Clovis Unified Schools. This well-maintained home featuring an open kitchen with a breakfast bar, dining area, a family room with fireplace, ceiling fans, vaulted ceilings, and inside laundry room. The large master suite has 2 large closets, a roomy bathroom with shower, and exterior door leading to the patio. Located near the intersection of Gettysburg and Fowler Avenue, call Mike Briggs Properties at 559-486-6758 to buy this home today.
Prepare to be amazed by the magic of Elder. Kyle Elder is a fantastic entertainer who has been studying magic for over 20 years. Book Kyle and the Magic of Elder for your event, large or small. Kyle will make you laugh and mesmerize you with his magic. For more information or a free quote, visit magicofelder.com or call 559-917-4543.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. And today I'm going through the chapter in Living the Science of Mind entitled How to Build Your Tomorrow Today. Now, moving forward, I'm probably going to go through this paragraph by paragraph, and if we need to do it over a couple weeks, I have no problem with that, and I hope you don't either. But I really want to drill down. I want to get this out here in a way that you can use it to make changes in your life. And Holmes goes on to say, he says, one of the outstanding things that Jesus taught was that the mistakes of yesterday can be canceled, that God's creation is always taking place, and no matter what the experience of yesterday may have been, what it had been, it can be changed. Jesus did not seem to think that this change required months or years of strenuous effort. Unlike those around him, he knew that God, or divine spirit, wishes only good for everyone. That takes a certain mindset to get to that point. And if you come from a spiritual philosophy that sounds a little foreign to you, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I don't know of any spiritual philosophy that doesn't have as part of its basic premise that God loves God's creation. And if you can start there, you can build on that. And you don't have to build on it necessarily in a New Thought way, and if you do, that's fine. But our understanding, and I'll explain this very simplistically, is that if God is infinite, and we believe that God is infinite, then there's no place and no space where God is not, we like to say. Which means that where we sit today, where you sit, where I sit, in that space, in that place, there is an expression of the divine there. And we may call that ourselves, our personal beingness, but we're not separate from. There's a whole bunch of thought on that I've talked a little bit about in the past, and I'll get to again in the future, but we're not separate or separated from anything, because God is infinite and we are God expressing as us. Now, that's a new thought concept, and it may not be yours, but consider, when we talk about a oneness and a brotherhood of humanity, and like I say, these are things that we'll touch at another time, but there's no separateness. So we can start right where we're at. And he says here, again, I'm going to go back and read this. He says, unlike those around him, he knew that God, or divine spirit, wishes only good for everyone. God is love, and God loves his creation. Only good for everyone. He knew that we're all rooted in pure spirit, in perfect life, and that at any moment, we can so unify ourselves with the power of good that what we call evil will disappear from our experience. Then that's a big bite, isn't it? At any moment, what we call evil can disappear from our experience. But man, you look out in the world and you see all this stuff, and it doesn't make any difference where you start you're looking from. It doesn't make any difference where in the world you are. It doesn't make any difference what side of the story you are on. You look out in the world and you see what you may call evil or hate or whatever. You say, well, how can I look out in the world and not see that? Well, it's an interesting thing. But as we begin our spiritual journey, as we open ourselves up to, like I just said, the concept that God is a universal presence, then no matter where we look, we're still looking at some part of God expressing. In order to do that, we have to suspend something that seems to be near and dear to our hearts. Now, the story goes something like, judge not, lest ye be judged, and by whatever measure you judge, by that measure you shall be judged. And you know what? We do a lot of judging, don't we? Kind of like complaining. We like to judge things, it's good, bad, so on and so forth. And if it's bad, we complain about it. So we've doubled down on our negativity, so to speak. But if we make a choice, as I said in the beginning, we make a choice to begin to see the divine principle in all that is, there's another part of the teaching that goes that we should love God with all that we are, and I'm paraphrasing. We love God with all that we are, and one of the things I like to point out that loving God with all that we are, and God being everywhere present, that means no matter where we are, we love ourselves with all that we are too. Now, on a serious note, that can be tough for some of us. If we've grown up in an environment where we've learned self-hate, for example, or self-limitation in our personal beliefs, how can I love myself with all that I am? How can I? When I know in my heart my deepest, darkest, negative, self-limiting secrets. About this time, alarms should be going off, right? Because that's our story. And that's why we start out with the beginning, that we can take our story and walk away from it. We can choose to open up the moat, allow that stagnant, poisonous energy, water that has surrounded our story to flow out and be replaced by cleansing, empowering, energizing water from the river of life. And we take our story very lovingly, because it's ours, and we put it in the library of our mind. We cannot divorce ourselves from it in the sense that it's part of our history, but we don't have to let it own us in this moment. Whatever we learned along our path, along our journey of life that has embedded itself in our belief system of limitation or lack or self-unworthiness, none of that's true. If God is everywhere present, we've talked about that just not 2 minutes ago, God is everywhere present, then where you are, where I am, God is there. As the prayer of protection goes, God is there and all is well. And that's not a sometime thing. That's not a only on Sundays thing. It's an all-the-time thing. And it's not limited to any particular place. It's at every place. No matter where we're at, God is there. Learning to love ourselves with all that we are. And realizing that as we learn to love ourselves with all that we are, we're also learning to love God with all that we are too, or spirit, or universal intelligence, or first cause, or goddess, or any other name that you may choose to apply to the creative substance and force of all that is. With all that we are, with every bit of our beingness. That's awesome. But now, here's the big leap. Can we translate that from loving ourselves as all that we are and loving our neighbors as we love ourselves? Wow. All of a sudden, don't we want to go back to a little bit of judgment? Don't we want to go back to maybe holding back a little bit? Because we all know our neighbors, and there's always that one neighbor, seemingly, or that one individual, or maybe it's, in part of the life outside of ourselves that we catch on the evening news. Doesn't make any difference. Can we learn to love our neighbors as we love ourselves? And we learn to love ourselves with all that we are. And it means saying, so what? It means giving up a lot of judgment. It means stopping complaining. What it doesn't mean, and sometimes people get confused, it doesn't mean that we give up boundaries. And this is where we have to learn individually how to set healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries mean that we're not a doormat. It means that we don't have to participate in something that is damaging to ourselves or to other people. We set our boundaries. But as we set our boundaries, we also set our boundaries with a love and understanding that not everybody is where we're at today. But I'll tell you, if we don't move forward with ourselves, we make it hard for anybody else to get there at that point. It's an interesting thing that if we want to change the world, the best way to change the world is start with changing ourselves. And oftentimes we so much want to go out and tell the world what it needs to do in order to make itself a better place. But you know what? Let's clean our own house first. Let's clean up. Let's let our story go. Let's begin to work on ourselves. And this is the deal. Once we begin to do that, the world changes. It's amazing. So moving forward, Jesus did not seem to think that this change required months or years of strenuous effort. Unlike those around him, he knew that God or divine spirit wishes only good for everyone. He knew that we are all rooted in pure spirit, in pure life, and that at any moment we can so unify ourselves with the power of good that evil will disappear. I went back and reread that because it's so important. He knew that at any moment we could and can so unify ourselves with the power of good that evil will disappear from our experience. And that's what I was just talking about. But he knew that, and it's what he tried to teach to the people that were around him. So we go on, he says, even as what we did yesterday set the law of life in motion to create what we're doing today. What we did yesterday, our tie to our story yesterday, our tie to what's going on, the complaints that we have, all of that is part of the foundational work, if you will, for what we're going to experience in today. He says, even as what we did set the law of life in motion to create what we are doing today, so what we are doing today sets the same law in motion to create what will happen to us tomorrow. In other words, as I make my choice for change today, as I do that, I'm setting up my tomorrow today. What do you want your tomorrow to be like? What do you want the rest of your day today to be like? How are you going to start your morning in the morning? And how are you going to experience this afternoon? Even though we have been tied, and what we are experiencing now, we have created in our life experience at this point, we can change that. Now, before I move to the break, I want to make something very clear here. There are people that believe that we are responsible, if you will, for everything that happens to us in our life. And to those people, I don't have a discussion or an argument, but I will tell you my personal belief is that we are not necessarily responsible for everything that happens in our life, because I believe that life comes at us at the speed of life. But I also believe that how we experience everything that happens to us in our life. We are responsible for. And so taking that thought, we're going to move to our next commercial break, and I'll see you when you come back.
This 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Clovis is now for sale. Nestled on a cul-de-sac in a planned unit development, the quiet neighborhood is near Sierra Vista Mall, grocery stores, and Clovis Unified Schools. This well-maintained home featuring an open kitchen with a breakfast bar, dining area, a family room with fireplace, ceiling fans, vaulted ceilings, and inside laundry room. The large master suite has 2 large closets, a roomy bathroom with shower, and exterior door leading to the patio. Located near the intersection of Gettysburg and Fowler Avenue, call Mike Briggs Properties at 559-486-6758 to buy this home today.
Protect yourself by letting private investigator Michael Morgan Clark get the facts you need in matters of infidelity and divorce, corporate investigations, criminal defense, workers' comp, child parental abduction, wrongfully accused. Michael Morgan Clark will investigate anyone. Call 559-785-1900 or visit clarkinvestigations.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. And today we're looking at Living the Science of Mind, a chapter on how to build your tomorrow today. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of coffee here. If you happen to have a copy of the book, you can pull it out and move along with us. If you want, and you're watching this at a later time, you can use this possibly as a study guide as you go through this. I know when I first read this chapter years ago, and I went through and I marked a bunch of stuff up because I felt that the message there was very important, which is why we're addressing it today. Moving forward, Holmes says here, he says, what we did yesterday is carried over into today only because we give our consent to it. Think about that. What we are thinking and doing today can create the kind of tomorrow we wish to experience if we will change our outlook on life. What we're doing today, what we're experiencing as today, is so tied to the story that we have kept ourselves tied to that oftentimes we're blinded to the reality that we can experience and express life at a better, higher, more healthy, more peaceful, more harmonious, abundant level because our story is full of our stuff. And oftentimes our stuff is kind of full of chaos. The idea that we can make choices, and one of the most powerful tools that we have is the ability to make a choice. The idea that we can make this choice, that we commit to this choice, and that's where willpower comes in. And we've talked about this in the past. I'm going to take a moment to a little sidebar here, if you will. It's not our will that's going to help us as we move forward. It is our imagination. And there's some great stuff out there on the internet. If you happen to be familiar with Neville, he's no longer with us. He was kind of a contemporary of Ernest Holmes, but there's a lot of stuff that can be found on YouTube. He still has books in print, but a lot of focus that Neville had was on tapping into our imagination. And he used to describe the imagination as that part within us which was really God expressing in its creative way. The idea that what we're experiencing as life today, we're tied to, is not true. What we're experiencing as life today is what we have kind of pre-created for ourselves from our yesterday, our complaints, our fears, our angers. Oftentimes, though, some of our more positive ideas may be part of our creation today, but oftentimes, it gets tough sometimes because we look out and we say, I want that in my life. I want this in my life. Now, there's some people that say that the law of attraction will help bring that into our life experience, and that's true to a point, but it's not going to get us anywhere if we stop right there. It means that when we say I want or I hope, we're not claiming ownership of. And in claiming ownership of whatever it is, even if it's just a more peaceful, more harmonious life, when we claim ownership of it, we have to believe that it's going to be available to us. How can we believe it's going to be available to us if we're tied up in complaints and in judgments and, all the stuff that we talked about that goes along with it? It's only when we begin to separate ourselves from those things in our consciousness that the idea and the concept of a reality of something more harmonious, more abundant, better, more love-filled, more peaceful, begins to take on a kind of a mental equivalent, if you will, of a reality. And that takes place in our imagination. Now, particularly when we're starting out, our mind can, it kind of runs all over the place. And this is where our willpower comes in, because that's where we can take and we can refocus. So we commit to it. And if you're not a disciplined person, if you happen to be a procrastinator, these are things that you're going to have to deal with, but they are definitely overcomable. People do it all the time. You begin to write yourself reminder notes. I know people that take a bar of soap and they write on the mirror in the bathroom. Now, the great thing about that is they can write affirming messages on it, but a couple of showers and the steam in it kind of all just comes off. You wipe it off and you put a new one up or another one, and that continues to reinforce it in your life experience. So we move forward. He says, what we are thinking and doing today can create the kind of tomorrow we wish to experience if we will change our outlook on life. That's where we got to go. So, but since today is the only day in which we live, and the here and now is that point, and yesterday has forever passed, the change that we need to make within ourselves must be made today. Not just today, but right now. If you put it off, and you put it off, and I'll take care of it this evening. I'm at work right now, or I'm busy doing something, or I'm watching this. Stop right now and make a choice. Just make a mental note. I make a choice, okay? And you can do that. And so we have to live each day as though it were complete and perfect within itself. We have to live each day as though all the joy there is in the universe were ours now. How do I live in the mess that I'm in? Right? With all the joy of the universe being mine now. Well, initially, and I won't deny that it can be a little tough to get that mindset, but it is something that each of us can do. And it's amazing. I was talking to a gentleman earlier today, and we were talking about young people and the issues that, there's a lot of stuff for young people out there in life today. And they're told in so many ways and so many places, that they're limited, they can't, and so on and so forth. And it's tragic. If you happen to be a parent or someone that has the ability to influence young people, reinforce the idea that good is always there. Help them build that as a basic foundation of belief. See, belief is where our reality really is created. What we believe is what we will experience. And I guess that goes back to the saying once again, it's done unto us as we believe. If we believe in limitation, that's where we're at. If we believe in evil, that's where we're at. If we believe that there's good and God is all there is, then that also is where we're at. So we take those and we work on our beliefs. We use our tools, our spiritual tools, our meditations, our affirmations. We work with ourselves. We are our greatest teacher. We're also our toughest student. But we can be an even better teacher, and we can be an even better student if we make the choice to do so. So it comes with making a choice. And he says, if we make every day a day of praise and thanksgiving, a day in which we recognize the divine bounty and the eternal goodness, and if we live today as though God were the only presence and the only power there is, we would not have to worry about tomorrow. God is the only presence and the only power. Oftentimes, particularly in New Thought, as we do something called spiritual mind healing or spiritual mind treatment, we often start with this concept, this idea of a universality, of an infiniteness, of oneness that we call God, an ever-presence, an ever-powerful, all-power, an ever-knowledge of all that is, omnipotence, omnipresence, and it's just, how do we get there? We get there within our minds, within our hearts, this idea. And truth be told, I don't always live in that space. I'd like to say I do. But there's times when I realize that that's where I'm at. Sometimes they're intentional through daily meditation or prayer work. But sometimes in the midst of the day, I notice that I'm kind of in that space. And as I notice that, I make note of the fact that I notice that. And I experience more of it in my life. Joel Goldsmith called it practicing the presence of God, being aware of the divine principle in all and everything that is, no matter how trivial it might be, including our story. Practicing the presence of God means being able to look at our story and say, even though, that still was God expressing as me. And God was there. On some level, all was well. I may not have realized it. I may not have been able to take advantage of it. But it doesn't change the truth, the fact of what it is. So this next paragraph, I'm not going to hold it up, but I got some heavy underlining and captioning in here, and he says, we are all human, and we all have made mistakes. Boy, that's true, isn't it? He says, the starting point for creating a better future for ourselves is to deliberately free our minds from the mistakes of yesterday and feel that they need no longer be held against us. They need no longer be a liability. You see, here we are, we're working through this, and Holmes is continually going back to this concept of letting our story go, letting yesterday be yesterday, and it can own all of the past that it is, but it's not in the present. There's no power from yesterday here. Now we're going to talk about, too, the idea that the future, that which will come, that which we have gone to bed last night worrying about what's going to happen and letting that fear and anxiety kind of well up in us, or maybe even some thoughts of complaints about, well, I've got this list of stuff I got to do tomorrow, whatever it is. Letting that go, too. You mean we got to give it all up? And the answer is, yeah, we do. But you'll find that it's not really a giving up. It's really a self-freeing idea. Freeing yourself from the bondage of thoughts that hold us to untruths, and freeing ourselves up from the idea that there's something in the future that we need to fear. I mean, the brain was hardwired for fear, and there's all sorts of evolutionary reasons for that to be so, but it's not true as we experience life today. We don't have to be afraid. Think about it. Everything in your life that you've ever feared, you've managed to overcome. You're at this point, and no matter how terrible your fear was, even if you had to struggle, even if you had to work, you managed to transcend it. You managed to get right here, right now, and boy, in this place, in this moment, right here, you are the most powerful thing in your life because you have the ability to make choices. We shortchange ourselves because we think the power in our life is something outside of ourselves. We give up our power to others. Other people, other situations, other events and conditions and effects are responsible for how we feel, and it's not true. Yes, things happen to us that we would maybe rather not, but they're not responsible for how I feel. I can choose to still be at peace and be in harmony within myself. I can still choose to even find the good in things that otherwise I may have found reason to complain about. And if you have time, I highly recommend that you scroll through the internet and you take some time. You'll find Christian Larson's What is Truth on the internet in a PDF format. And if you're like me, you can go online and you can still find it in print. But it's out of copyright, so it's available, and it's online. I like to have stuff that I can write on and stuff. But it's a great book, and let's see, I don't have it. Yeah, I do have it here in front of me. What is Truth by Christian Larson. I want to just touch on something here. I'm going to give you a page reference because it's marked. Here we go. On page 24 and 25, and he talks about beliefs, and he says, what we believed yesterday, we frequently discard today, and what we believe today, we are quite liable to discard tomorrow. And I'm not going to go into what he says about beliefs because that's I've covered in other shows, and we'll come back to it again sometime. But the thing is, when you begin to understand how your beliefs are so important into the creation of your experience in this reality, and how what we believe oftentimes really tends to want to hold us, if you will, almost as if it's an entity. We're in our space, in our stuff, to keep those walls up so that we live in that mode of toxicity around our story. Our beliefs will hold us there. But we can blow through that, man. We can, ladies and gentlemen, we can move out and we can move into the river of potentiality of all of life's goodness and abundance. But we have to make the choice, and then we have to commit to it, and we do. And so this is what Holmes is talking about. How to build your tomorrow, a better tomorrow. How to build it today, because that's when we do it. He says, too often our minds are so burdened because of the mistakes we have made that we do not take time to forgive ourselves and others and start over again. And so it is wise to occasionally review the past and try to find out just what we've been thinking and doing to create this burden in our minds, to create the life we have today. Oftentimes, when I'm working with people and they say, well, okay, Reverend Steve, you talk about this idea of beliefs creating our reality and all this sort of stuff, and beliefs being held on a subjective level, things that we don't know that we believe in. And we got a lot of that stuff. Jung called it the shadow, and there's other names for it. How do we know what those are? How do we know that, those limiting things that seemingly are expressing in our life? But, I think about it during the day, my conscious time during the day. I don't think I believe in limitation. I'm working hard. We're going to take our next and last break, and when we come back, I'm going to tell you what you can do, because you can find out what it is that's limiting you within your own belief system. So I'll see you when we come back. Have another sip of coffee.
Diane Ainsworth's books of poetry and scriptures are available at CondioPress.com and as ebooks at Amazon.com. Diane hopes the words in her books will convey the unconditional love Jesus has for you. Learn more at godsinspirationsblog.wordpress.com and get a copy of Diane's books today.
This 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Clovis is now for sale. Nestled on a cul-de-sac in a planned unit development, the quiet neighborhood is near Sierra Vista Mall, grocery stores, and Clovis Unified Schools. This well-maintained home, featuring an open kitchen with a breakfast bar, dining area, a family room with fireplace, ceiling fans, vaulted ceilings, and inside laundry room. The large master suite has 2 large closets, a roomy bathroom with shower, and exterior door leading to the patio. Located near the intersection of Gettysburg and Fowler Avenue, call Mike Briggs Properties at 559-486-6758 to buy this home today.
Prepare to be amazed by the magic of Elder. Kyle Elder is a fantastic entertainer who has been studying magic for over 20 years. Book Kyle and the Magic of Elder for your event, large or small. Kyle will make you laugh and mesmerize you with his magic. For more information or a free quote, visit magicofelder.com or call 559-917-4543.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
It's New Thought Talk. Welcome to our last and final segment for today. I hope you've enjoyed what we've covered so far, and we're going to be taking this into the next week or two anyway. We're going through a chapter called How to Build Your Tomorrow Today. You can even add in there How to Build a Better Tomorrow Today if you'd like, and it's found in Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes on page 190. Before we went to the break, I was talking about how we can determine what the beliefs are that we may have that we may, truth be told, we may not even be aware that we had. I always like to refer back to, there's a late Scottish psychiatrist or psychologist, I don't remember which, but his name was Lang. I believe it's spelled L-I-A-N-G, something like that. But he has a great quote, and it goes, "The things that we think and do are limited by what we fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there's little that we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice has shaped our thoughts and deeds and our beliefs." The last part was mine, but it's true. We fail to notice what we fail to notice, and because we do, how do we make change? How do we know what it is that we don't know that we believe, but still is something that's very influential in our life? Well, what I tell people to do is sit down. And this is not something you're going to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Make this a process. An evening, several evenings, period of several weeks, whatever works for you. But make a commitment to do this and complete the work. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a list initially of stuff going on in your life. Make it as detailed as you can. The good, the bad, the not so good, the plain, the ugly, if you will. Write it out. Review the list on a regular basis, or, if you're going to do it in a short period of time, go back, review it, add to it as new things come up, as you think about things in your life. But what's going on in your life? And as you put it in a list, you go back over it, and you can do a star, a plus, minus, a zero, however it is that worked for you. You can take a highlighter and highlight things, different colors, so that, you prioritize things that you experience in your life that are not necessarily positive, things that you experience in your life that are absolutely incredible. And as you go through what you're doing, and as you make this list, essentially you're creating a mirror of what it is that you are experiencing in life, but that mirror is also a mirror of what your basic beliefs are, even the beliefs that you're not aware of. If you're experiencing things in your life that are limiting, then and we're not going to get real deep into, psychoanalysis here. That's not the point. The idea is not to get down to root issues that go back to childhood or anything like that. The idea here is to just look at what it is that we're experiencing in life, realizing that life is a mirror back to us of what we believe. And when we find those things on that list that maybe we put a negative to, or however we want to, address those things in life that we have experienced that we're not necessarily wanting to experience, we can take and we can kind of put them in a category. And as we put them in a category, we can see maybe those that have certain similarities. And, it may be, let's say, financial limitation. That can be a really easy one. Although that can be also, you kind of got to watch that, because people get a little funny about something they call prosperity gospel. But nonetheless, you can experience more in your life, but you got to begin to believe, one, that you can experience it and create the mindset of beliefs that will allow you to experience it. And we'll get into that another time also. But the thing is, you'll notice that there will be patterns of things that you experience in your life that you can generalize as a belief in. And usually it's some type of lack, limitation, less than-ness, self-worthlessness, so on and so forth. As you begin to look at those things, and maybe you can categorize them, things that have to do with being inferior in any way might be a good place to start, for example. We can start with affirmations. I mean, the affirmations can be as simple as as Couillet's every day and every way I'm getting better and better, repeated multiple times through the day. There's other affirmations. There's a whole wonderful group of affirmations that you can find on the internet. If you happen to have some books that relate to it, there's all sorts of stuff. But what you want to do is you want to begin to focus on creating a new belief of, my story doesn't have to limit me. My new belief that I can be an expressive, dynamic individual in my own life. This is maybe not a bad idea. We've talked about in the past being a creation, if you will, of divine principle, and that principle as God expressing as you and expressing through you. At what point are you limited, if you really stop and think about it? Where is it that lack should be a part of your life? My personal belief is that at the moment of our inception, whenever and whatever that was, everything that we can need, want, and desire to express our life maximally is there in potentiality. But we have to become aware that that potentiality is available to us. That's part of the wonder of the New Thought spiritual philosophies, is that journey to self-awareness. But moving on, it says too often our minds are so burdened because of the mistakes that we've made that we do not take the time to forgive ourselves. We covered this. I want to do this again. We do not take the time to forgive ourselves. That's one of those things. If you are God expressed as you, and you are, what is it about you that can't be forgiven? And boy, isn't this sometimes where our story can come in? Well, I can't because what I did it's a lie. Whatever it is that you're telling yourself that limits you, it's a lie. That's part of your story, It's part of the chains that have kept you where you're at. It's part of the toxicity of that moat that you have been swimming around in. It's time to let it go. You are the divine principle. You are God expressing as you. You are love expressing as you. There's nothing in you that should ever experience limitation. And if you are experiencing it, it's time to start maybe with some self-forgiveness, self-awareness, self-realization. Take the time. And so it is wise to occasionally review the past and try to find out what it is we've been thinking. This is where that mirror work comes in. It's powerful, and it's a powerful tool that you can use. He goes on to say, suppose we had a deep sense of animosity towards other, and because of this, find that we are not meeting people in the right spirit. They naturally respond to us the way that we meet them, and our whole set of human relationships is out of harmony. Do you want to have more people in your life on a friendship basis? You know, one of the things that I can remember years ago growing up is if you want a friend, be a friend. Think about what that means. Giving up complaining, giving up thoughts of limitation, giving up self-worthlessness, opening yourself up to the concept that, you know what, as the divine principle expressing as me, there is something in me that is worth other people's time and effort to get to know me for. You can even make that an affirmation. Put it in your own words. He says we cannot go back over the past and relive it. Got that. That's our story. Let's put it on the shelf. He says we cannot make adjustments to the past. Give it up. Let it go. It's a history book. Put it on the shelf. You want to pull it out and read it from time to time, that's fine. But remember, it's just a book. Put it back on the shelf when you're done. He says we have to make them in the present. The adjustments that we're going to make, we have to make them in the present. Right here, right now. That's where our power is. And what are the adjustments we're going to make? The adjustments we're going to make are working on making choices about our beliefs and about what it is that we have an expectation to see in our life. And if your idea of an expectation of what you should see in your life is not better than where you're at today, let's refocus. Let's raise that up a little bit. And it's something that you can do. And you know, the thing is, no one else can do it but you. You are the only person that can make that change in your life. He says, it is not going to do us any good to sit around and cry over the past and bemoan our fate, because in the very day in which we are living, the right here, right now, you got that right here, right now, we are creating our tomorrow. As you watch this show, if you choose to take some of these ideas and incorporate them into your daily spiritual or your daily mental routine, you have already begun the journey of creating a different life experience. He says, this is awesome stuff. It's not going to do us any good to sit around and cry, because we can't. We are living our tomorrows, which will become monotonous and repetitions of our yesterday. We will, if we look to see, by looking at our story, what it is our story is, then we will see tomorrow our story represented tomorrow. We can let it go. So today is the time in which we should cut loose from our threads of previous experience. Now's the time. It's not going to necessarily be easy. You're not going to wipe the whiteboard. It used to say blackboard. You're not going to wipe it clean in one fell swoop. And as you wipe it, it's going to come back. The thing, let's talk about mind science for a minute. Not spiritual mind science, but real mind science. The brain learns in 3 different ways. Short-term memory is created through chemical that we create in our brain. Long-term memory is something called neuroplasticity, where the brain actually begins to rewire itself. And then when we really get into it, we get parts of the brain where functionality can change as a result of the things that we do. All this depends on the time that we put into it. If you study to memorize something, for example, you spend an hour on it, you think you got it, it's good. You get up tomorrow morning and you can't remember a thing. Well, you got it in the chemical connections when you were going through it, but you didn't do it long enough at a level deep enough where the neuroplastic part of the brain began to rewire, where you can recall it. So you got to go back and do it again until you get that point. But if it's a skill that you want to put into practice in your life, and really living life is a skill of some sort, living life in a positive, creative, self-reinvesting, reinvigorating way, we work on it. we actually change parts of the brain, the functionality of the brain, where our brains, which are information-seeking organisms, if you will, we begin to change its focus. If we begin to seek good, we're going to see good. And speaking of good, my goodness, we're about at the end of our show. So I'm gonna finish this up. We're gonna cut it today. We'll pick it back up next week. Let's do this again here. So today is the time in which we should cut loose from the threads of previous experiences, wherever they are negative, and we deliberately make up our minds that we shall no longer create our future out of an old past. We're going to let our story go. And if we've had antagonisms and resentments in the past, today is the only day in which we can change them. Make that choice. Make that decision. Do it here. Do it now. And do it continuously. And when you go to bed tonight, as you go to sleep, right before you go to sleep, declare your gratitude for what you experienced today that is good. Maybe write down 5 things every night that happened during the day. No matter how tough today is, you can find 5 things to be grateful for. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, own that moment in the morning, and you can do it. And come back next week. We'll pick this up. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, go through the archive, pick it up. If you happen to be watching us on New Thought Channel, pick it up. I think there's an archive also on Central Valley Talk. You can pick it up there. There's many different places where you can get this information, and I'm happy to share it. And always, you'll see that my email address is there underneath. rev.steve11@live.com. Send me an email. I answer them all. If you have something that you want to question, or if you have an affirmative treatment that you would like to have done for you, get a hold of me. And so we close today as we do always. Remember, my friends, that as you go through the week, that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, the presence of God watches over you. It does, it really does. Because no matter wherever you are, God is there. All is well. Have a great week. I'll see you when we come back.